If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I teach tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. Process goes A to Z. And if you follow the process, you're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for you. Part of the process is research. That's what we're going to talk about today. Before we get started, do me a favor, help buyers like Matt, for example. He's a buyer representative for the Navy. Help buyers, help your teammates, help others in this community, and most importantly, help me remember who you are. For example, I saw Brian from First Division Consulting, right? Brian, I want to see what your company name is and your core competency, 2 or 3 keywords that help us understand what your company sells. And it helps me remember. And as we have other people like David Waltz from, right? David's got it right there where he's from Keyport, another Naval Surface Warfare Center, or excuse me, Naval Undersea Warfare Center. But these buyers pop in, and so I want them to know who you are. Lastly, I just want to say thank you to the GovCon Chamber of Commerce sustaining members. We don't take government money. We don't take large prime money, prime contractors, large businesses. We fund this ourselves through you and through me. Sustaining members make this possible. Training like this, content like this, so that we can share it out with small businesses out there. And so this is possible through your sustaining membership. And I just really wanted to say thank you for that. So I am going to bring Matt in here, and I'm going to do just a brief hi, and then we're going to dive into a conversation. Let me get rocking and rolling. Hey, Matt, are you there with us?
I'm here with you. Thanks for having me today.
That's perfect. So Matt, as you can see, is the deputy for small business. He's basically the small business professional out in Crane. And we're going to talk to him today about basically how can we do business as small businesses. In particular, how can we do business out in Crane? And I told Matt when he was coming on that I wanted to ask him the tough questions that all of us small businesses wish we could be candid about. So he's like, all right, you can ask anything you want. It's like, I might not answer. But Matt, I really appreciate you being here and for us to just kind of dive in. And perhaps we could start with you just sharing from a high level, what does Crane do in relation to the Navy? Just, from a high level, what's their mission as it relates to the Navy, et cetera? Somebody asked me, by the way, there's a Navy installation in the middle of the country?
Absolutely is. So yeah, we are, just to touch on that real quick. I mean, we're the only one that isn't located along one of the coastlines. So we are located right in between Bloomington, Indiana, and Evansville, Indiana, right along I-69. But yeah, so Crane, we have 3 major mission areas at Crane: strategic missions, electronic warfare, and expeditionary warfare. So if you look at the Navy kind of on a high level, you've got big Navy. There are 10 major buying commands within the Navy. If you're interested in learning about the 10 major buying commands, I would tell you to go to the Department of Navy Office of Small Business website, and you can learn about each one of the 10 major commands. But one of those 10 being the Naval Sea Systems Command, or NAVC. And we are one of the field activities or warfare centers. We are, I believe, one of 10 under the NAVC umbrella. And again, going back to those 3 major mission areas, so we do a lot of Strategic Systems Program Office support, U.S. SOCOM support, United States Marine Corps, Coast Guard here at Crane. We'll talk, we can get into a little bit later about all the different things that we buy, but that's kind of where we fall kind of in the Navy organizational chart down here at the NAVC field activity.
Yeah, I'm curious about the fact that it is in the middle of the country, it's not on water. I did a industry day breakdown that you guys did. I just shared it out, but it was fascinating to see all the different work that you do. And it seems like a high level of technology type work that's being done in there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So great question. I mean, we buy a whole host of things at Crane. So primarily, our portfolio has shifted over the years. We used to be a 2/3 supply operation, so we bought a lot of guns and bullets and things that went bang, and But over the course of time, as we've evolved as a command, our seaport or our service portfolio, or our professional service portfolio, has grown as well. So now we're about a 52% service, 48% supply portfolio, and that portfolio is about 1.9 billion annually, with about close to 30% of that work going to small business. We also have what's called an other transaction authority at Crane that was put in place about 4 years ago. So that's really growing. That's another opportunity, another way to engage with us. We have a consortium manager that takes care of that, which is NSTXL, which is the National Security Technology Accelerator. So they're the consortium manager. So if you were interested in that, you would reach out to them. But by and large, in the core portfolio at Crane, like I said, we're buying engineering services, we're buying machine parts, we're buying R&D, model-based systems engineering, sensor systems, batteries, you name it, we're probably buying it in some form or fashion.
You said is it about $1.9 billion in contract dollars, and then, whatever percentages go into small. First off, was that correct? And then second off, in there, does Crane follow to this idea of working with those four major small business programs like SDVO, Woman-Owned Small Business, et cetera?
Yeah. So the overall obligation in FY22 that we had at Crane was about 1.9 billion. And like I said, roughly 30% of that went to small business. And every year, Crane, just like any of the other warfare centers, we receive goals from headquarters that, say a certain percentage of your obligations need to go to small business. And those are, just a general small business, your small disadvantaged business, your woman-owned small business, your service-disabled veteran-owned small business, and your hub-zone businesses. So we have goals in all of those socioeconomic categories that we strive to meet on a yearly basis. And over the last, 5 years, we've done a really good job at meeting those.
Yeah, I'd be curious. By the way, for those of you who are on here live, I told Matt I wanted to go through fast because these daily lives that I do are a 30-minute session. And so we're going through fast. You can learn a lot more about Crane, about maybe how to work with Crane by, reaching out to Matt if it makes sense, which we're about to talk about. But also go look on their website. They've got industry day slides, et cetera. So you can find a much slower introduction to all this stuff he's talking about at a pretty fast pace, which I appreciate. That speed that you're going at is perfect. It makes us have to go. He said NSTXL. What's that? I got to go research that. And I love that idea. I was going to tell people in chat, put in whether you're one of those small business programs, because as we come out of today's session, I'd like to be able to tell Matt who was here and maybe who's interested in working with Crane. So if I can provide your company name back to him, your name and your if you're a small business designation, and then also your core competency, make sure that's in the chat, and my team will kind of cobble it together and get it to Matt. Let me pull a thread though on what we're talking about, just as it relates to small businesses, because that's our world here. What makes an ideal small business to go out there, right? And let me caveat this a little bit, because I know you, and I know that you're super generous, happy to answer questions with anybody who comes up and says, "Hey, Matt, can you answer a question?" But and there's a lot of you and small business professionals who are like that, generous with your time. But there's an ideal small business that would be a good fit for Crane's missions and needs. Without worrying about being too sensitive, could you tell us, like, what does Crane need from small businesses besides the technology? I mean, more of a maturity model or maturity level, if you will.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. So again, just to kind of put things in context, like I'm an office of one, just like most of the other small business professionals throughout the Navy. We are an office of one. We have, like at Crane, we have 3 major mission areas that we support. We obligate a lot of dollars over a lot of contracting opportunities. So whether those be simplified acquisition or large contracts. So we get a lot of businesses that reach out to me on a daily basis. And the ideal small business, the ones that I enjoy talking with, and the ones that I think where the conversations are the most productive, are the ones that have done their homework. Kind of like, just like you mentioned leading up to this, like businesses that have gone to our public facing website, looked at the website, looked at the mission areas, pulled down any documents that we've posted from like previous industry days, which most of the commands do that. They put out PowerPoint presentations about the command. They give a little bit of information about what's bought or what we procure in each one of those areas. So a company that's done the homework, tried to figure out where do they fit in the organization, like where, if I look at Crane, where do I think I fit? Which one of those mission areas could I support? And then maybe going back and having done some research in, let's say, sam.gov to see, okay, well, you guys have been buying this, or you had a procurement out a couple of months ago that looked like this, and it was something that I was interested in, just to show me that you've gone the extra mile, that you've looked at some of the public facing information. And now we can have some fruitful conversations about where I think you would fit, maybe engineers or folks inside the gate that I should probably connect you with. Or if that's not an option, maybe one of the large primes or one of the small business current support contractors that we have that we might want to connect you with for potential partner opportunities down the road. So, the thing that can sometimes be frustrating is just the person that calls and is like, hey, I'm looking for work. Well, what are you looking for? Where do you think you fit? I'm going to kind of go through all those questions, but we have a lot of public facing information. So I would tell you, just go to Google. It's as simple as that. Just search NSWC Crane or go to LinkedIn and follow us on our social media profiles, because we try to pump out a lot of information via those channels as well, just to reach small businesses and the whole industrial base in a different manner. So, those are just a few tips or tricks that I would recommend to kind of help small businesses engaging with me in my office.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. By the way, just as a plug for a LinkedIn group I started a while ago, and actually Hunter Martin, who's in the chat, I see her in the chat. She's now an admin of that group as well from Bain Group, but it's called the Navy and DIB. And I just had so much homework material from people like Matt and others that I could post, but it would just clog my profile that I created this group. And the only purpose of the group is to share out Navy related information like strategic plans, industry days. So go look for a Navy and DIB group. There is no selling, job marketing type stuff. It's all purely Navy homework. Going to Matt's point there about doing your homework. I do want to pull a thread a little bit on, people doing their homework and coming in. And by the way, I want to tell this old story really quick about one of the ways that I knew Matt was this person I just want to follow for a long time as it relates to an ideal small business professional within the government, helping, right? When a company is coming unprepared, he guides them over to like PTAC, says, hey, maybe you want to start here and get going. So he doesn't blow you off, but he doesn't bring you into the wire or into the gate, because that might be a waste of time for the people who are in Crane. But I did bring a person who was a member of the chamber who was, had like 10 plus years of experience. So solid past performance, solid offering, but the right path, Matt, you did this was saying, hey, you probably should talk to this large prime instead. And then you just made that kind of introduction. It's like, it's up to you guys to talk, but this ability to be able to meet people. So I wanted to pull a thread on that whole idea of, if small businesses are coming out to you and we're what I call procurement ready, right? We're ready to do prime contracting. How can we get past you and get to the program offices, right? And like, what do you need from us? Because I can bypass you, right? That's one way, and good luck if I can do it or something. But if I'm going through you and I'm actually getting you as a person who's going to advocate for a meeting, right? Just
Sure.
saying, hey, you should meet this small business. What do you need from me as a small business, let's say, to be able to feel comfortable introducing me to one of the major program offices within Crane that I might be trying to knock on the door? It's not just you telling me who it is, but like, I know who I want to get to and I want to get an introduction. What do you need?
Yeah, no, again, great question. So, again, once you've kind of gotten beyond me, folks refer to me as the gatekeeper. It's kind of funny, but if I had my choice, if I know you're ready, I want to have at least a 30-minute conversation with you, just to learn about your business. From my perspective, learn where, get an idea of where you fit. And then what I'm going to try to do is go back to my network inside the gate, my engineers or my requirements holders or requirements personnel. I use the term interchangeably, and try to make a direct connection there via that channel. Because oftentimes I always say, small businesses, they know how to do the work. They want to talk with the technical experts. I mean, talking with the contracting officer, the small business professional is great, but they want to talk with the engineers who actually are in the field working in that. So if I can help make that connection, that's ideally what I want to do. I'll help try to coordinate a conversation. But at the end of the day, once you've gotten past me and you're talking with one of our engineers, I kind of want to let that dialogue, let you guys handle it from there. I can jump in and help. If we start talking acquisition strategy and things of that nature, I can help from that perspective. But, in my office, when it comes to the technical capabilities at Crane, I've got to go a mile wide and an inch deep because we're doing so many things here. It's really hard for any of the small business professionals to be, embedded and know exactly what's going on technically across the center. I just don't think it's possible. But if you're trying to connect direct with a program office, then I would refer you to the Department of Navy Office of Small Business website. And say you go to the NAVC page, there's a NAVC program office you're wanting to connect with. Go to the NAVC page, and there's a link there to all of the deputy program managers for all the program offices. So it's got contact information there. So I would advise you to go there and pull that contact information and reach out to the appropriate one that fits your business. You can also find within that link contact information for all of the NAVC small business professionals. So you could get a hold of me, you could get a hold of Dave, who's on the call today. So all of our contact information is available for you to get in contact with us.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect reminder too, by the way, that Matt is one of over 1,000 small business professionals in the federal government. I think there's like 150 in the Navy alone. But right there, you see on my picture, it's got www.govconchamber.com. Go over there and you can download right off the homepage a free ebook that has the names, numbers, and emails of over 1,000 small business professionals within the federal market. I spent years compiling that, and it's the only one out there, and we make it freely available to you. So get that, because it's a great way to begin to just reach out to the Matts out there that can help you. Let me ask you a question on what you buy, because there's this, I can't remember how you said it, but your service portfolio, right? And how you're doing that. But there's other stuff that maybe I sell, and I'm going to use a couple of examples that aren't on these primary things that Crane buys. But I know that you need it. And so I want to ask you, I want to pull a thread on this. Like, how do I get there? Because often within any agency, right? But often I might go to Crane and I get redirected here or there. For example, I'm going to use two examples, right? One is facilities and like painting. You guys got buildings. I'm a painter. Or SharePoint. SharePoint's a fundamental tool within the entire Navy toolbox. And so every one of you basically has access to or is using SharePoint, including you. Like if I wanted to come in and tell you how you could do your job so much more proficiently or something, not better, just more efficiently using SharePoint. Well, often somebody will say, well, go over to NavWar. They're the ones who run SharePoint. But that's running the system and their platform. What do people like me, if I'm coming in and I'm a painter and I know you got buildings, or I'm a SharePoint person who's really trying to talk to somebody like you in your office or the contracting shop or the program shop within Crane about business process improvement or something? How can we navigate that? How do you guys buy it? It's a kind of a really wide question, so take it where you want. But
yeah, no. So first I'll touch on kind of how we buy. So at Crane, I mentioned that we utilize a vehicle which most of the Navy uses called Seaport Next Gen. It's our primary competitive professional support service vehicle. That's just what the regulations, the NM cars tells us we have to do. So that's the vehicle we use. If it's a non-Seaport contract, which would be anything above $250,000, you'll find that on SAM.gov, as well as anything above $25,000, like in my world, that's not solicited via Seaport. So we have bank card buys or credit card buys, which the threshold is $10,000. So if it's below $10,000, we're typically going to take care of that opportunity via a government credit card or P card purchase card. If it's above $10,000 to $25,000, now you get into the simplified acquisition world, which there's a lot at Crane. There's a lot of volume and there's a lot of dollars spent in that area. So trouble is, you're not going to find those opportunities necessarily publicly available via SAM.gov or Seaport. So one thing I would recommend that you do is reach out to the local small business professional like myself, just to let me know what you do and the kind of the work that you're looking for in the area, as far as dollar thresholds where you'd like to stay. The other thing I would recommend is if Crane, say for instance, you want to work with Crane, if we have any vendor engagement events. Like we just finished up the biggest show that we do on a yearly basis, which is the Buy Indiana Expo. We finished that up in April, and that's a vendor trade show. And we have, hundreds of people from Crane, including, probably close to 100 buyers in attendance, just trying to get to meet the businesses that want to work for us or are currently working with us. So that's a great way to do it. We also host quarterly Crane industry days. We call those Connect to Mission. And we host them here at Crane, just outside the gate of Crane at the Westgate Academy. And those are in-person events, and those are mission area focused. So we do we have 3 main mission areas plus our business operations. So we host those each one on a quarterly basis. So the next one is June 6th, and that's for our strategic missions department. So if you want to learn more about strategic missions, what they buy, how they buy, that might be something for you to attend. But I would tell you, that process would hold true with any of the warfare centers. If they have industry days, try to get involved with those. As well. So, there's a lot of opportunity in working with us, but just, try to leverage. And then also going back to those, the LinkedIn, the social media profiles, and staying abreast of what each one of the commands are doing.
Yeah, and you just described something it's fundamental to the 7-step process that I teach, that relationships lead to opportunities, requirements in your case, but for us, opportunities. And it ties to something. I generally don't look at the comments, or the chat at the moment, but I did see somebody say something about, I've reached out to a lot of people who are small business professionals in that ebook I just said, and I haven't got a lot of responses. But the reality is I reached out to Matt about this very event on Monday, I think, and he didn't respond to me until Wednesday or whatever, because he was out at the big Indiana event. And one of the things I would tell anybody who's listening and anybody who's trying to reach out to the Matts of the federal government is just cut them slack. You just got to follow up. I always say the answer is yes, unless they say no.
Yes. Yes.
Right. See, it's yes.
I mean, it's one of those, like I always tell people, especially like the people I work with in inside the gate, if you've reached out to me and I haven't responded to you in a week, like, follow up with me. Your email, if you sent me an email, I get hundreds of emails a day. It probably got buried, but it's not that I don't want to talk to you. Reach out to me because I do want to connect with you. I probably just missed your email. So,
I call you just an elusive buyer, right? And I provide, by the way, anybody wants this, you can get it from us. It's a 30-day follow-up process about how do I follow up with Matt to get him to respond to me. And the one thing you have to keep in mind is that he's probably willing to hear from you, wants to hear from you. He just is busy. And so you got to keep top of mind. We got 8 minutes or so left. 6 minutes. Let me switch gears a little bit. I did want to talk to you about in sales, right? You've got the acquisition life cycle on the government side, and we've got the sales life cycle, and we overlay them and we try to align to it to learn your process. But one of the things we say is, like, if it's in SAM, it's too late, is what we generally say. Yes, people can go into SAM, see an opportunity, win. But even the RFI, to me, is kind of a little late because the process started long before the RFI dropped. It doesn't mean it's too late at the RFI, but we shift left. We just keep shifting left. And so, a normal response from people in your position is to take a look at SAM, watch our tools, et cetera. But any advice on how we can get into Crane when we know an opportunity is coming out, let's say even a year from now? This is capture for us. Any thoughts about how we can begin to engage a program office about a particular opportunity or requirement that we know is going to be coming out, but hasn't hit any kind of formal industry day or RFI? Yeah. How do we get into those program offices?
Sure. No, again, that's an outstanding question. Because this is what sets the good businesses apart from the others. The long range acquisition estimate. It used to be called the Long Range Acquisition Forecast. They recently changed the name to the Long Range Acquisition Estimate. So if you go back to that Department of Navy Office of Small Business website, there's a link for all of the Navy Long Range Acquisition Estimates. Now, I always want to call them LRAPs, but there's a link to all of those. And that's showing work 3, 5, 6 years out in the future. Now, those are over a certain dollar threshold, so it's not going to capture everything, but that's one good place to start your search, is becoming familiar with those long-range estimates. Another way to get ahead of things is, like I mentioned, if a particular command is having an industry day, that's another good way to get in front of things. from the standpoint of that's where you're going to meet a lot of the potential players, whether they be current small business support partners, current large business support partners, or the requirements personnel inside the gate, to where you can start to engage with them and say, hey, this is what I do. This is where I'm looking to go. And they might give you some insight of, oh, hey, I don't have an opportunity right now, but in 6 months, we've got this one coming up that you might be interested in. Be on the lookout for it. So getting some of that kind of inside baseball knowledge, I think is very helpful. But one last thing, when it comes to engaging with the large prime contractors, speaking the language of that LRAF, because that's the language they speak. They're monitoring those LRAFs. Now, granted, they have business development people inside the gate that are staying on top of things, but they're monitoring those LRAFs, and they're going, 12, 18 months, prior to a solicitation hitting the street. That's when they're building their teams. So if you want to become a teammate of one of these large primes, you also need to be tracking that LRAF so you can start to engage some of the large businesses in the local market about potential teaming opportunities with them if you want to sub. So, that I think speaking the language of the long range estimates will really go a long way for you, not only inside the gate, but outside the gate.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And also being able to use somebody like you to be able to navigate some of that process.
Yeah.
For those who are listening, this is exactly why I say that you need to be focusing on one agency. To me, the Navy is one big department, even though it is a department, it's a DOD, but it's like coming down to NAVC and saying, let me go into NAVC and try to grow my company to 10 or 100 million. You can do it in NAVC, but it means building those relationships, learning, doing your homework, et cetera. One thing I wanted to say, and it's funny, we've got an ebook out there also on our homepage that's a free download, and it's the long range acquisition forecast. So it's got 100 different agencies and the links to their stuff. We'll probably, Gus, have to go update that if it's officially changed everywhere, or whether it's just a Navy thing. But that's a great idea, is just keep going into that in the industry days. I did want to just kind of wrap up as we're coming down to the bottom of the hour. To me, this isn't trying to get every piece of information from you. It's really trying to put you in front of the industry so that the industry can know that they can reach out to you and learn more about Crane, learn about how they can support Crane. I highly recommend you, if you're brand new to the government contracting, that, yes, Matt will probably take your call, but I wouldn't recommend you do that. I'd encourage you to go to the PTAC. Get started there first, especially the PTAC in Indiana is probably really great if you're there. But how would other people who are, perhaps ready to support your internal customers, how best should they follow up with you after they've done their homework, on the Crane public facing sites, et cetera? But how best should they reach out to you?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is via email. So my email is matt.burkett, Burkett, at navy.mil. I'm sure Neil will make it available to you. So that's probably the best way to reach me. Another way to reach me is I try to be somewhat active on LinkedIn. So you can follow me on LinkedIn, send me a message on LinkedIn. And we can connect that way. I'm probably going to refer you back to my email so we can set up a time to speak. We can get something on the calendar, but that's probably the best way. That's probably the best way and the easiest way to reach me right now.
No, that's perfect. I'm going to have you keep on for a second as I do a little sign off, and then we chat afterwards. But I just want to say thank you very much for coming on. I've done over 300 of these live events over the last 12 months, my team and I, and now we're moving forward into bringing in guests like you to really provide actionable tips is what we're looking for. And you've really set the standard for Dave and others who might come on, the standard for what's a good panel session with us. So thank you very much for being part of that, Matt.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. So, hey, if you found value, by the way, in today's session, do me a favor, become a GovCon sustaining member so that we can keep doing this for all small businesses out there who perhaps can't afford to sit there and go to Crane and learn about Crane or get the training that we do. And then remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next session.